G'day, everybody. Welcome back to Metaphysics of Fiction. I am your host, Lewis.
And I'm Jack.
And today we are going to be continuing our three-part episodes of the Iron Man series with Iron Man 2. I like to focus mainly on this one is the concept of obsession and addiction and how that can actually lead people down very bad paths, and sometimes how you can actually manage to get out of the cycle of obsession and actually come out a little bit better and come out a little bit closer to your friends and actually really improve upon yourself. Because as we mentioned before in episodes, the main idea of Iron Man is self-improvement, and we can actually see that within the Iron Man armors. So to start off with, I think you can see the idea of obsession mainly in three characters: Justin Hammer, Ivan Vanko, and Tony Stark. What about you, Jet? What do you think?
Um, I hadn't thought about the movie in that way. So this is new information. I think so. Yeah, they're definitely they definitely have a grudge, or they have something they're holding on to. As the members in this movie.
Yeah. Start off with we'll just look at the basics. We'll look at Tony for starters. He's kind of obsessed with being the hero and playing things close to the chest, because the last time where he just let everything flow in the first movie, he was just letting everything just pass him by without him keeping constant supervision on it. These weapons landed in the hands of terrorists, so he's playing all these things so close to the chest, and because of that, it's kind of killing him. And then he started just to behave real erratically, like at his birthday party when he was just absolutely shit faced, and he ended up fighting Rhodey.
Yeah.
The thing is also that I think that was based off a part in the comics, because there was a point in time when in the comics when Tony Stark was dealing with alcoholism, and when he was really down, like he had to go to rehab and all that, and Rhodey actually did take the Iron Man suit so he could be the new Iron Man stand-in for him while he was actually going through all that. The other characters with, let's say, Ivan. And Ivan, you can actually kind of consider him like the Dark Stark. He's Tony Stark's mirror that went down a very dark path, like he had a very hard life, and which led to him to have this obsession with destroying Tony, and not just like killing him. He wanted to make him look weak. He wanted to make him look. He wanted to take everything from him until the point where it actually got him killed. And you can actually see this so in a couple of ways. Like he was actually willing to go to prison. He was actually okay with going to prison and sitting there for the rest of his life as long as he could just watch Tony's life crash and burn. So if you really look at it, Tony and Ivan could be the two smartest kids in the class, which actually brings me to what's his name? Justin Hammer. Because if you look at Justin Hammer, he's kind of like the spiteful little brother of Tony Stark. And that's actually kind of easy to see, because he said he likes his dessert first when he's dining with Ivan, so you can tell he's got a bit of a sweet tooth. He's holding the lollipop when he's talking to Rhodey about arming the suit, and he has all these mannerisms as that of a child. So you really get a little bit of a little brother vibe from him.
I can kind of see that, but some of the things that I was coming away with this, and it kind of makes sense because the first movie was about responsibility, and I think the second movie, in a lot of ways, was trying to follow up on the irresponsible side. It's when you're irresponsible and you suddenly become responsible, that irresponsibility vanish? And I think this answer is saying is no. So for example, Ivan and his dad. So his dad obviously laid down the groundwork for the arc reactor. in this movie. That's why they have the blueprints. It's why he has a lot of the knowledge and the tech of how to do these things. And Ivan inherits that from his father. He inherits that knowledge and that skill, and it's because of the Tony Stark's the Stark's family irresponsibility in terms of doing right by this person, and that this now has created a problem. This now has created an enemy. And I think very much in the same way with Hammer, that Tony's irresponsibility. Tony could have been a friend to Hammer. Tony could have been nicer, but instead he takes every opportunity to humiliate him, to talk down to him, to bat him away, and it's no. His responsibility is gone. Well, it's actually transformed, and I'll get to that a little bit later. But that irresponsibility has of making bad decisions in regards to Hammer has now created like not just an enemy, but someone who really wants payback, someone with a grudge, and this is really why the two figures come together in the movie, because Hammer is just like, oh man, this guy is trying to get back at Tony, all right, I can use him to get back at Tony, and this guy is, and Ivan is, I can use all of Hammer's tech and I can take advantage of him.
Like as you can actually see also that same kind of irresponsibility in Hammer, because he should have known that this guy was definitely a massive threat. I mean,
100%.
Yeah, I mean it's almost ridiculous.
The guy went along with your C4 plan, like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna blow up the cell. I will give him C4 to blow up the cell and put another body in the cell with him, and I'll just expect him to follow along with this.
Yeah, and it was even before that. I mean, Ivan Vanko, well, for starters, he has a supervillain name. He's called Whiplash, in case you don't know, because it's not actually said in the movie. He's called Whiplash. And the guy made that tech, and the freaking whips that cut through race cars like it was nothing. And he's like, I'm going to give him all this crap there. They could actually make an army of this, and I'm just going to leave him alone with it. How in any way is that even close to responsible?
Yeah. Oh, and Hammer hasn't gone through his own little personal cave story when he realizes what he's doing is wrong. And he's stuck in that childlike state, basically.
Yeah. I mean, also, no offense to the actor, but he does look like he kind of has like this childish mannerisms. He looks eternally young. Like he grew up, but only size wise. He actually kind of like, I look at him and I feel like if you shrank him down, he'd actually still look like a kid. He's got a youthful face.
Yeah, he does have those mannerisms of being a kid as well. He has dessert first. He speaks in a way that's not an adult. It's almost like he's trying to be an adult.
Yeah, especially when he's talking to Rhodey over the War Machine armor, and how he's making all these jokes. He's trying to look cool. He's trying to look hip.
I call it the ex-wife. No weapons manufacturer other than Tony would make these jokes.
Yeah, and with Tony, people would probably actually laugh at him.
Because he would do it in that charismatic, sophisticated kind of way, not in the childish kind of way.
Yeah, he can actually get people to gravitate to him. Hammer just pays people. Like, he makes deals. Crappy deals that could have almost got him killed, but deals. Also, here's a little tidbit that you might not know about Ivan's father. In the comics, he's a guy named the Crimson Dynamo, a very powerful Iron Man villain, actually. He has his own Iron Man suit that was actually, like, coated red, and, well, frankly, it's actually pretty cool. So I feel like that was a bit underplayed. Like, they could have actually put, like, I feel like they could have actually put Dynamo somewhere hidden in there.
Yeah, I think the only thing they had with Ivan's father is just simply that he worked on the arc reactor and that he deserved the majority of the credit for it.
Yeah, but then he was actually going to like. I think he was like. I don't think it was explained very well. Like when he, because when Tony was talking with Fury, he said that Anton saw it as a way to get rich. I think what he meant by that is that he was probably going to sell it off to like to Russia and all that to
Yeah, to the
all these
different
people.
governments.
Yeah, like he's actually going to some very dangerous people. So yeah, I think they actually make maybe not explaining the bad guy like as well as they could
No,
have.
yeah, yeah. Well, because I mean, just from a story point of view, like he really wasn't he really wasn't explained very well, and because like
Hmm.
at the while he's on the TV, he looks kind of he doesn't sound like he's holding like vengeance or like this very large angry grudge, but he's more just remorseful. He's like,
Yeah.
Ivan, that should have been you. That should have been you standing there, Ivan. More of this remorseful, like, if only I did better. If only I did something else. Not an
Hmm.
angry like, man, those Starks, they robbed me of my money. Ivan, you're gonna rise over them one day. No, it was more like a I'm sympathetic for this character, not, oh man, this guy's angry.
Yeah, like if he's angry, you probably would have gotten that easily. But yeah, he's just tired. Probably look like because when he actually kind of, I always feel like when you get to the point that point in your life where you come into the end, you kind of look back on everything, and he probably did as well because he knew he was about to die, and he just thought, "What the hell have I done with my life? What have I left for my son?" I mean, Howard didn't do all this stuff. And now his son gets to be a freaking superhero. I did all this stuff, and now my son's gonna have to be stuck here in Russia in this squalor of a house. And well, in a way, you can also kind of get that kind of idea with Tony as he was dying from the palladium poisoning. He actually did ask Black Widow what she would do on her very last birthday, and he said, "Do whatever the hell you want." So, and that's the thing. He was trying to set everything up in case he did die, so he probably wouldn't leave with the whole any regrets. So he made sure that Rhodey had the armor, left the company to Pepper because he knew that she would be able to take care of it, and for some weird reason gave all of his artwork to the Boy Scouts of America. I still don't get that part. Like, why the Boy Scouts?
I mean, I guess like it's a funding thing because the paintings are expensive. But apart from that, I can't glean anything from it. It's
Yeah,
probably an American thing that we're missing out on.
yeah, probably. Still, I like being Aussie.
One thing I want to talk about is, so if you kind of look at Tony at the beginning of the movie, narratively, it seems like his character has just completely reverted. It seems like we're back at the initial stages of Tony in the beginning film, where it's just, oh yeah, everything is all about me. Here is my Hollywood piece. But also but actually it's kind of actually turned as well because it's still turned back to I protect America. I'm the guy. I am Iron Man. And one of the things I was looking at is, so at the end of the first movie, he's become this responsible person. He's this person who takes responsibility onto himself and he shoulders it. But in this movie, in the last 6 months, I think that responsibility has, just because it was made very public, has now turned into glory.
Yeah, you
And
can.
glory has now turned into pride.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Like he feels like he's the top dog, like, and no one could kick his ass, even though
He
this movie.
literally says that he's the human phoenix.
Yeah, the funny thing, he says this, but this was also after the Hulk movie, so he should know that. Like, this might even be before he made the Hulkbuster suit, so he should know that he probably would have gotten his ass kicked if he ever met Bruce Banner.
Yeah, exactly. He talks about how he's a human phoenix at the expo. He talks about how it's not about me. It's about legacy. It's about the expo. It's about sharing ideas. It's about the legacy the family legacy being on full display. And like when he was talking about the expo, it was peppered with talk about sharing ideas internationally, but the majority of the speech was centered on him. It was also centered on his family and how his family has used to establish this fair and expo.
Yeah, in fact, Pepper did actually say that the expo is pretty much his ego going crazy.
Yes. And I think that ties in with sort of another idea that I popped out of this which was that all this glory, all this pride is very toxic, and the more he commits to that kind of mindset, the more toxic he gets, and that's where he's checking his blood every so often for the palladium poisoning.
So the more toxic it gets, the more toxic he gets with his pride and all that, the higher the palladium would get, like
The
that type
more
of
Yeah, exactly.
like
The
that
more
type of
outlandish
secret.
he's getting, the more that he's seeking glory rather than taking on the responsibility, the more his blood is getting out of control.
Yeah, that's a good way of seeing it. Like that's actually a very interesting way of putting it. That's Plato's cave all over again.
Yeah, yeah. Like it's almost like, and this is absolutely something that I've often thought about when I did Plato's Cave. Just to walk back to Plato's Cave, is I I never came across anyone talk about, well, what happens if you go out, if the person goes out of the cave and just decides that they want to go back into the cave and they chain themselves back up to look at the shadows on the wall because they don't like what they see outside. And I think I don't think this is an example of that happening, but we're getting pretty close to it. Like Tony is abandoned. He just abandons his responsibilities in the for the vast majority of the movie. And it starts getting even worse and worse as his life starts to get in more and more danger.
I think that was actually because he was like, I always felt like that was because he wanted to push people away because he didn't want anyone really kind of, getting all up in his business about him dying. Like, so it'd probably be easier for them when he actually gets, when he dies. So he's
Yeah.
like, so he's left them this responsibility.
Yeah,
That,
but like for example, like let's look at the racetrack scene. For example, the racetrack fight. After Happy runs into Whiplash, runs into Ivan, there is a solid 20 to 30 seconds where Tony could have just gotten in the car and they could have driven away. It would have been the responsible action to do, just to get away, to regroup themselves so that he can come back as Iron Man and deal with this threat. No, he just decides to argue with with Pepper Potts for the 20 to 30 seconds, and then Ivan wakes up.
no, he wasn't even arguing. He was actually complaining about better security. That's what he was saying. He's like, I was just attacked. We need better security. This is my first vacation in 2 years, and I just
Yeah.
got attacked. That's even
Yeah.
worse than like arguing. That's just straight up complaining.
And then even when he gets his suit and he faces Ivan, he doesn't face him in the way that would best suit Iron Man, right? Iron Man has the ability to attack at a much longer range than Ivan can. All he had to do was fall back, even use his flight advantage, and he would have taken down Ivan. He has weapons strapped to Iron Man to deal with something at this range.
Well, it's actually quite possible it might not have because that was actually a very compact armor. Like every time I watch that scene when he's suiting up with his case armor, and like every time I watch that particular scene, I always get a sense of how tight the Iron Man armor really is. I mean, all the other ones are like a lot bulkier, and I always felt like that maybe all he has really is the repulsors, probably barely any of the actual flight tech, and it's like because this is his travel armor. So
Even if we assume that all he has is the repulsors, would it not be more advantageous to use your ability of flight and to swoop in and to, I don't know, pick him up, throw him around, run into him from flying, rather than stand there and attempt an attack on three separate occasions and get whipped away?
well, like I said, it might not have had the flight tech, and plus also it might have also been dangerous because like he could end up accidentally turning his back on an opponent, and someone like this who's clearly adept at fighting, he's probably much tougher than he looks, and if he has to he has to keep his eyes on him. He has to make sure he doesn't make a mistake. And don't forget that it's Tony doesn't exactly have much experience in fighting supervillains like this. He's hasn't been prepared to fight a guy like this. The closest he got was Obadiah, and even then, that was a guy with the big bulky armor that even if he did try jumping away, if he went back at him, it wouldn't have done as much damage. Like, so he probably didn't think like that. He's not exactly a strategist.
Well, I mean, I would think that at this stage he would at least be coming into the strategy side of Tony Stark, which is in much in the later movies where he is very much a leader. That he would have had enough experience to acknowledge what the best course of action could have been, and I at least think that he chose a poor choice of actions in order to fight Ivan in that initial scene.
And you're right, because he actually does do this type of stuff in the second fight with Ivan. Like, he actually does try the whole jumping. He actually comes in from behind. He smacks him a couple of times. And that's when his armor is also a lot bulkier. So yeah, you're definitely right on that stage. So you can actually tell he's kind of he's probably trying to make it look like he's always willing to put himself, he's probably trying to put himself in harm's way to make himself look and feel like the hero. Because
yes, I think this circles back to glory. I think in that fight with Ivan, he was still in I'm Iron Man, I'm undefeatable, I am the Phoenix, and I'm gonna make a spectacle out of this chump.
It's also probably because like the whole concept of I'm dying, so I don't fear anything. So he probably feels like I'm dying anyway, so I'm gonna go straight ahead. So it's also that argument as well. Yeah. So those dead men walking really don't fear anything, which has led to a lot of my favorite episodes in comedy TV, like Becca. If I'm not dying, then I'm a dead man. Oh, I love that scene. In fact, in the comics recently, in the latest run, Tony Stark has like pretty much given up all of his riches, and like he's just living on the basis. He's just living in New York in a brownstone apartment, and he's kind of partnered up with a street level hero called Hellcat, a character that's also in the Jessica Jones TV series. And he's gone through some crap because of Captain Marvel. That's going to be a discussion between you and me later on because we all know what our stance is on her. So they've pretty much been teaming up a lot lately, and he's been trying to feel like a hero again, not like a a rich man that's just puts on a powerful suit. So he's been doing a lot of stupid decisions, and well, frankly, she like totally calls him out on like she calls him like a white guy with a god complex, and he says that he's totally privileged and all that type of stuff. So that's probably what's really showing here as well. Like, he's not trying to be humble.
No, he's trying to glorify his actions.
Exactly. That's the tricky thing about Tony Stark. He is a good guy, but he's just got too much. He has too much. And sometimes they can actually kind of get into his head. So he's trying to be the hero. Like Captain America said, you really think you're a hero? So, continuing on, if we can get back to the idea of obsession, we can actually really see that it can actually take people to a very bad place, where it took Ivan, because he actually decided to kill himself to try and kill Tony, as well as destroy the entire Stark Expo. I mean, what exactly is that going to accomplish? Even if he does, he must have known that Tony would have been able to get away in that time limit. Should have been able to get Pepper. And even though he dies saying, you lose, he just really destroys a couple of buildings. And I'm quite sure that a guy who, when fighting the Hulk, says, how quickly can we buy this building, would probably be able to repair that. So that was also probably like his point of insanity when it came to obsession, and he just made a stupid move. Point which actually got him killed. And that's where addiction and obsession can actually get people. Like, it can actually go to some very bad places. Like, I remember I've been it's not exactly the same, but when I was younger, I actually just there was a point where I just couldn't stop eating, which led to me to get up over 100 kilos. I'm doing much better now. I've actually started seeing a dietitian. I'm almost down to 89 kilos. And but the point is, there was a point in time I just couldn't stop eating. I still haven't figured out why. But that obsession with just eating actually caused a lot of problems for me. Like I could barely breathe just after a brisk run. So
Yeah.
yeah,
It yeah. Well, I think obsession really does. In the case of Ivan, his obsession really does allow him to just make mistakes. Realistically, Ivan's first attack was successful, but his second attack just was not successful.
yeah,
His first attack put Tony in a really bad position. Um,
mm,
but his second attack put Tony it had Tony at such a disadvantage from the beginning, and that disadvantage was this massive undertaking by Tony, to the point where Tony still succeeded, and that actually gives Tony a little bit of legitimacy once again. It sort of leans back into the idea that Tony's tech is just simply superior to everyone else's. And even with a massive disadvantage of crowds, massive disadvantage of the drones, and Ivan himself, that Tony can still take that on and win.
yeah, exactly. It's probably because I think this just popped into my head as you were saying, like the more he had, he kind of like messed with his head. So like he was glorifying his actions. I might have actually started working with Vanko. He started out with nothing, made this um, garage suit of Whiplash, and he hit Stark, and it actually does hurt him. Stark might have won, but he got put into the crosshairs of the government, of the public opinion. Even his own friends were starting to question whether he could actually keep people safe. And then the second time, he's just coming in this big bulky armor and throws the drones at him. And Tony just proves that he's a hero because he saved everyone. He saved Pepper. He saved Spider-Man. He saved pretty much everybody. He started working with Rhodey.
Yeah. Yeah, like he saves everyone despite the position that he was in, and it's much better than the racetrack scenario. The racetrack scenario is just a Tony won, but he won marginally. He could have very easily have lost, but in this scenario, it's Tony. It was difficult, but he seemed to easily overcome it.
Yeah, he kicked ass. Part of that was probably because of the fact he actually got over everything that he was being put through and actually decided to work with Rhodey. Because there was that scene earlier in the movie when after the racetrack fight, and he's just sitting in his car learning who Ivan and Anton were, and Rhodey just comes down telling him, "Look, dude, you got to get your act together because the government's gonna take your suits. They're gonna just barge in your door. They're just gonna slam down and break all this glass and just take everything here." Which kind of brings up the fact: why would you put a security on a glass door? I mean,
It's
seriously,
very strong glass. It's stock issued glass. It's the strongest glass known to mankind.
And you can tell that Rhodey's trying to kind of like work his way in. He's trying to understand why Tony's doing anything. He's trying to put himself in Tony. He's trying to let Tony know he can trust him. Like he can actually help. He could do something for him. But Tony just kind of rejects that, which keeps leading him more and more down the rabbit hole up until the party.
Yeah.
And then he lets Rhodes help him, and they pretty much kick ass together.
One of the saving graces I think for Tony in this movie is if we go back to Treasure Planet is his father. His father was the one to bring Tony back into alignment.
Yeah, his father and a little bit of Nick Fury.
Yeah, a little bit of Nick Fury. But even Nick Fury, like Nick Fury was dangling his dad in front of Tony, and that instantly makes Tony sort of straighten up and start listening and start paying attention and focus a little bit more. Um, but ultimately, it's that video from his dad that really refocuses Tony, and it puts him back in a place where he can overcome that toxic issue that is currently nearly taking over his life.
Yeah. And also, if you really look closely at that video, you can notice that when Howard actually says the line "key to the future," the the actual scene jumps between three images. It jumps between the actual planet structure that was the form of the atom. It takes place to one of the buildings that I think was circled like the other, and then it goes straight to the reactor. It was actually Howard telling Tony, "Look at these three things, and you'll find our new element." It's like, look at it, boy. Look at these three things.
But what I really like about sort of that father scene is um it's not a scene that it's not a scene where it's his dad sort of re-showing Tony who he's meant to be, but rather it's who he can be.
Yeah, who
Um,
he who Howard thought he could always be.
yeah, who
Oh,
who his dad thinks he can always be, and and it's so much stronger, at least in the second movie, because Tony Stark, really, he is meant to be a responsible leader. He's meant to be someone who takes the first step forward in new areas so that everyone else can follow him. But that's not all Tony can be.
yeah.
Like there is an almost limitless potential above who he's meant to be, that
Yeah,
his father guides him towards, instead of sending him to who he's meant to be, it sends him towards who he can be.
it's like what you said, like in our last episode, that Tony is when he was before the cave, he was untapped potential, and his dad still believes, even when he was a kid, he also always believed that there's all this untapped potential, and you kind of see that when they were doing that scene in Civil War,
Mm,
that Howard's really just disappointed in the fact that he has all this potential and all he's doing is all this partying nonsense.
hmm and that's that's the gift of his dad. It's a true legacy. It's not a legacy based on glory and partying. It's a it's a legacy based on reaching a higher potential for yourself.
Yeah, a new level of tech, like a new level of technology that could actually do some good things for the planet. And he
Mm,
does. He finds the new atom. He connect the new element. He creates a new generator that could
mm.
actually power the Stark thing that we saw in the Avengers. I love that scene, and I just really feel like the whole energy thing that they did in the first and second movie really should have been kept playing on in the MCU, because you don't really hear much of it later on.
No, well, I think because a lot of the times, so that symbolism of that energy, when Tony gets his first arc reactor, it's an instillment of purpose. It's a lighting of a torch, right? And in the second movie as well, the little triangle, charging up the triangle, filling up with new purpose,
Yeah, tasty.
with new goals. If they did that every single Iron Man movie or like Avenger movie, I would lose my shit.
Okay,
There would be
okay, fair
there would
enough.
just be a scene every single movie where it's like, oh, here comes Tony charging up his thing.
But technically, they did do that in the third movie when he actually tossed it aside. He actually finally got rid of it. He
There
decided,
goes
"Oh,
nanotechs.
that didn't come until Endgame." The point was, I think the point actually no. We'll save that for the third. We'll save that for the
Yeah,
third episode. We'll come back to that.
yeah.
Sorry, people. If you want to figure out what I was about to say, you have to watch the third one. Going back to Nick Fury for just a bit, probably also for a wrap up. Let's just say Tony Stark went full on addiction because he's gone through that in the comics. He's actually gone an alcoholic. In current comics, he will not touch a single alcoholic drink. He's actually being very good about it. And after the party, you can kind of talk about Shield being his rehab center, like his rehab center being his house, or the Shield being the doctors, and like Nick Fury being the main doctor that he has to talk to that helps put him back in line. So they kind of act like at the hospital, and eventually Tony figures the stuff out, and he actually remembers that what he's capable of, he can actually do these things. So thanks to Nick Fury, he managed to get up and over his problems, eventually showing the stuff with his father. Like Nick Fury didn't solve his problems, he just kind of pointed him in the right direction. He gave him the map to actually walk the rest of the maze. And
Nick Fury he's a pseudo father figure, for a lot of other characters as well. He's an authority that guides.
Because this isn't like the first time he's actually dealt with a superhero. Like he's actually dealt with Captain Marvel before this. This ain't his first rodeo.
Yeah, exactly, and particularly like with Nick Fury and Shield, he's trying to guide these heroes towards a higher purpose, towards a nobler cause. He's trying to organize them in a way that best suits their talents, and that's what Shield is. Shield is that structure in place to help focus these people in the right direction. Because Tony left by himself is just going to go back to partying again. There's no way he relapsed once. He's more than likely to just neglect his responsibility again. And if he doesn't have Nick Fury breathing over his shoulder, I mean, he'll start serving himself again. He'll start serving glory and not the responsibility that he's meant to be embodying.
So I think that. So you got anything else? Else to say?
I'm all good.
Okay, so I think that wraps up this episode of Metaphysics. So if you're watching this on YouTube, please give us a like, comment, and subscribe. And if you're finding this on any other platform for your podcast, I hope you enjoy. Thanks again for listening in. I am Lewis Briffa with my co-host Jack Carolyn, and we'll see you next time for our next episode, concluding our 3-part series on Iron Man with Iron Man 3.